What is going on, everybody, and welcome to the Thursday edition of the Stochastic NHL Strategy Show. I am your host, Josh Harris. Joining me, as always, Slim Cliffy. I was going to say something about yellow and blue, but I don't know if they're primary colors or not. I forgot my primary colors, but what's going on?
Okay. Not a whole lot. Big slate ahead of us tonight. Interesting slate last night. That Buffalo-Pittsburgh game was completely off the rails. UPL giving up that late goal and then losing in overtime cost me a cash. That wasn't ideal, obviously. Like putting up 130 points and then you're on a 4-game slate as a single entry and then your goaltender shits the bed. It's one of those that's the second time that's happened this year, and it's frustrating, but that's also NHL DFS. It's what we sign up to play every single day, about 200 times a year. So that's just the way things go. A couple nice cashes in the chat. I saw top 3 to top 5. So congrats to the people that did well last night. Let's hope we can have a good night here tonight.
Yeah, I made a bad late swap. I mean, it was a good late swap, but it ended up being bad from like a points perspective. I took out someone on the Ducks. It wasn't Mintyukov. I did have an iteration with him, but I didn't start with him. I forgot which winger it was, but I went from Shillington and the Ducks winger to Logan O'Connor and Zellweger, and that was just bad news bears. That kept me out of the cash. It is what it is.
Yeah, I had a similar swap because Pacioretty was a game time scratch. So I had Matthews, Marner, Pacioretty, assuming it would be some sort of power play stack. But I was right at the salary cap limit, so I couldn't put in Matthew Nyes. I thought about just putting in Bobby McMahon and saying, screw it, I'll just go across 2 lines. But I was like, no, I want the correlation. So I dropped from Stolars to UPL so I could go from Pacioretty to Nyes. I would have been better off just taking the 0 from Pacioretty and leaving Stolars in net, which is really frustrating. But yeah, again, that's just the game we play. So hopefully our goalies don't let us down here tonight.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Logan O'Connor was skating in pregame next to McKinnon. He was 2,500. He came in at 2%. If he did the thing, I would have been in golden shape. That's just sometimes how the cookie crumbles. But we have a big 11 gamer to get to today. So big contest, not as big as yesterday, but there is NFL Showdown, probably the worst game in NFL history tonight. But there are 11 games. The GPPs are a little bit better this Thursday than they were last Thursday. We should get into the slate. Before we do, just wanted to give you guys a little bit of a shout out for hooking us up with the affiliate signups and just tuning into the show in general. If you are not premium and want to go premium, click that link in the chat. If you want 15% off your first week or month, you can use code Stochastic15. That is good for NHL. If you are looking to start up NBA, you can use promo code TIPOFF24. That will get you core packages weekly or monthly for $1 until the 30th. You can also use promo code EVERYTHING. That will get you 10% off an all access package until you delete it. So check that out if you're interested. Who the hell is Renee Zellweger? Yeah, me, myself, and Irene. No, Owen Zellweger, no relation, is one of the power play quarterbacks for the Los Patos, the Ducks. But let's get into this 11-gamer. Lots of high road totals, lots of bad teams, lots of backup goalies, lots of fun. Let's go have some fun. The LA Kings with a 3 total. Heading into Montreal, the Canadiens also have a 3 total. Kings lineup, we don't know. They gave up 8 goals to Ottawa. They got blown out of the building yesterday by Toronto. I would be shocked if they keep the same lineup here. we just don't know what it's going to be. I know Trevor Lewis moved up to the third line in game instead of Warren Fogle. Warren Fogle went up with Deneau and Moore. Whether they just completely blow up their lines or not, I don't know. Like, the Kings just have not looked good. Their front office sucks. They fired the coach and hired some guy in-house. It's like, we're all looking for the guy who did this, and it's just Rob Blake. He's a Muppet. Anyway, I would still imagine that Kopitar and Kempe are going to be together. That's about as far as I'll go. I think there's pairs. It's kind of like you're going to see Kopitar and Kempe together. You'll probably see Byfield and Fiala together, and you'll probably see Deneau and Moore together. The one I have the most confidence in is Kopitar and Kempe. They're also on the top power play. So if you do want to play Kings on this slate, and God bless you if you do in single entry, I would go to Kopitar and Kempe here. It's more of an MME type deal. And also, if you're MMEing and the Kings completely blow up their lines, you can find a nice low-owned combo there. My interest lies on the Montreal side, though. That top line of Caulfield, Suzuki, and Slavkovsky, 17,300 coming in at 3% projected ownership. Rittich started last night. Kemper's hurt. I don't even know who their other goalie is. If it can't be any better than Rittich and Kemper.
Phoenix Copley.
Phoenix Copley, who had like a good 4-month stretch 2 seasons ago, and it is what it is.
I will say, I think after the game last night, the coach said he pulled Rittich early because he was saving him for tonight because there was a back-to-back. So I think Rittich might be going again in net.
Lovely. I do really like Montreal 1 here. I'm not going to get to them in my single entry. I don't know. There are so many lines in so many spots on so many teams, but we are starting with this game, and I do like that top line. The price is pretty good. Kings are just a mess. That's a reason to play them. I do worry that Slavkovsky won't finish the game there, but if they get off to a good start, maybe he will. Kirby Doc one-off, I guess, is fine. But other than that, like, the only line I'm really considering in single entry is Montreal 1.
Yeah, this is what I'll say for the Kings, is that a lot of their problems are stemming from the penalty kill right now. They've given up 6 power play goals against in 4 games, and they're giving up 5. They've given up 20 power plays in 4 games. That number is going to come down, but if they take a ton of penalties, it's going to look bad. And we talked about it on yesterday's show, how they had a penalty kill save percentage last year that was almost certainly going to regress this year because it was so high, like an unsustainably high number. We're seeing that so far this year where their save percentage on the PK 785. So it's one of those things, like, they're not going to keep looking as bad as they are because they've actually been fine at 5-on-5. That's the thing that kind of worries me here. Not that they've been great, but, you know, small samples and all that. Expected goal share at 5-on-5, they're 5th in the league. It's just their penalty kill has been atrocious. The Montreal power play is where you would want to focus, I think, given how bad that, you know, that Los Angeles penalty kill has been. The Montreal power play has looked fine so far this season. They're not generating a ton. Like, the top power play unit, again, it's only 4 games. It'll get better. But they're under 80 shot attempts per 60 on the power play. That's bad. That is very bad. That's like, if they did that for a full season, they'd be amongst the worst power plays in the league type of bad. I do think they get better. Maybe this is a get right spot for the power play. I also wonder how long it's going to be until Lane Hudson takes over the top power play unit, because he's looked like their best defenseman so far of this season, at least offensively. But I'm with you. Like, if you play Montreal, I think you have to play the top line and get the power play guys in your lineup. 5.2% top 2 stack, 3.2% ownership. They're at home with a 3 total. Los Angeles penalty kill has been very, very bad. If it's bad again, Montreal's top line can pop a couple on the man advantage. So yeah, for sure. If anything on the Montreal side, it's the top line. On the Kings side, it's tough to say what to play. I wrote up Adrian Kempe in the picks article today, free to read over at Stokastic.com, but 93rd percentile shot attempt rate since the start of last season. Last season, Montreal bottom 3 in the league by shots against and high danger shots against. This season, back at the bottom in those regards again. The penalty kills actually look better, which is a pretty big note, but 5-on-5, they've been absolutely abysmal. I'm with you. I do think that Kempe, Kopitar, and whoever it is on the third side, whether it be Laferriere, maybe they even just move Kevin Fiala back up. We'll see what happens, but it is the Kings top line that I would have a lot of interest in. If not, if they do like Byfield, Fiala, Lewis, Byfield, Fiala, Turcotte, like something like that, I would have interest in the Byfield, Fiala line. They've looked good to start this season. They've just had trouble finishing, and I'm not worried about the finishing for that line in a 4-game sample. In fact, there's a microstat that's tracked called shot assists. It's how many passes a player makes per minute, 60 minutes. That leads to a teammate shot. So far this season, Byfield's at 16.1 per 60 minutes. It's over double what he did last year. He has looked tremendous to start this season. The worry is ice time. The worry is roll and all that, but Montreal's not been a good defensive team. I think all three Los Angeles lines are realistically in play. Kempe, Kopitar, and Laferriere aren't getting that much ownership, assuming that they're back together. They would be perfectly correlated on the top power play unit. So it is Kings 1. I do think there is there should be some interest in Fiala, Byfield, whomever, but it's the Montreal top line that I think is in the best spot in this game.
Yeah, agreed. New Jersey Devils with a 3.4 total, which is tied for the highest on the slate with the Rangers and the Blackhawks, which we'll get to later. Heading into Ottawa, the Senators have a 3.1 total. New Jersey blowing up their lines. You could see that coming as Timo Meier got moved around. They're going Jack Hughes, Jesper Bratt, Paul Cotter, Nico Hischier, Timo Meier, Dawson Mercer, and then the third line of Haula, Tatar, Nason. Looks like status quo for Ottawa. Now, this game's in Ottawa, and usually Stützle, Brady, Tkachuk, Giroux go out against top comp. If I had to guess, it would be that Hughes-Bratt line. It's not a huge deal from a matchup standpoint, but, you know, I do like to pick on my boy Josh Norris defensively, and he's most likely going out against Hischier, Meier, Mercer. That line's 14-8, a little bit over-leveraged, but I like that line. We've talked about it a bunch since Timo got traded to the Devils, that Timo's best numbers on the Devils are when Nico Hischier is his center. So while New Jersey won with Hughes, Bratt, and Timo was, you know, fun, this is where he plays his best hockey. Now, you can say whatever you want about Dawson Mercer. They refused to put him in the trade for Timo Meier. I'm not super excited about him, but on this line, I think he's perfectly fine. That, I don't want to say is my preferred line, but if you're in a little bit more of a salary crunch, I think that line's fine. I think Hughes, Bratt, Cotter is also fine. They're just 2,700 more. They're coming in with a little bit more ownership at 7.8% projected. Like, Jack Hughes is their best player, so you want to get your best players in your lineup. Paul Cotter, he's a shooter. I don't really know who I'd comp him to. You comped him to Victor Olofsson in our Discord, and I think that's fair. Not Buffalo Victor Olofsson, because Buffalo Victor Olofsson was playing with God knows who. So, like, I think that's a fair comp. I think he's not going to be out of place there. I think, you know, if you have the 17,500 to play him, I think that line is fine. If you want to spend a little bit down, I think the Hischier, Meier, Mercer line is fine. So I'm in on both the New Jersey lines. On the Ottawa side, it would be that top line. For me, Tkachuk, Stützle, Giroux. You get Stützle and Tkachuk on the top power play. Stützle has looked very good to start the season. something he did not look good at the start of last season. They have a long sample of being good. I like that top line. Other than that, like, I think a one-off Batherson's fine. A one-off Norris is fine. Like, for his defensive issues, he is still a key cog on that power play, whether you like it or not. He is a shooter. He might actually be their best shooter on the team. He just shouldn't be a top 6 center. He should be on the wing somewhere. But so Ottawa on for me. You can one-off some guys there. But I do really like the New Jersey top 6.
Yeah. I'll start on the New Jersey side. I think it's Hughes, Bratt, and Cotter that I have the most interest in for a couple reasons. One, Hughes and Bratt both on the top power play unit, and surprise, surprise, Ottawa's penalty kill is atrocious to start this season. We talked about it on the last show that we had Ottawa. It was a very bad penalty kill last year. I wrote an article on my blog. I watched every single Ottawa goal against on the BK last year. They played very stupid, and they don't look to be playing very much smarter to start this season. Right now they're at 12.6 goals against per 60 on the PK, 5th worst in the league. That's about where they were last year. It's one of those things we talked about with Minnesota. Even though Minnesota only gave up 1 goal, it's like you have to prove to us you're a good penalty kill before I'm going to assume it's improved. Things haven't improved. So Hughes and Bratt on the top power play unit. Cotter's only 2,700. Yeah, Compton to Victor Olofsson. Like, he's a guy that doesn't really do a whole lot else on the ice besides score goals. Like, he's a good finisher, and in DFS, like, that's I don't think you can ask for a whole lot more than that. So it's the Hughes, Bratt, Cotter line that I like. Yes, I do think Meyer is best with Hischier. Playing at 5-on-5. The issue is that Meyer was taken off. The issue for me is that Meyer was taken off the top power play unit, and now he's technically on the second line. If you look at Meyer's ice time the last 3 games, 14.5, 17, and 14.5 minutes. It's just not a lot of ice time, right? Like, that is worrisome for me. Dawson Mercer might end up playing more than Timo Meier here tonight, and I mean that. So, I don't have an outright, I'm not completely against, playing that Hischier, Meyer, Mercer line. I just think I want as many guys on the top power play as I can get, and that's Hughes, Bratt, Cotter. Also wrote up Stefan Nason in the picks article today because he was moved into Meyer's spot on the top power play unit. Now, Stefan Nason, not an elite producer or anything like that. But one thing I talked about was that in his 2 years in Carolina, he had a 90th percentile impact on expected goals on the power play and an 84th percentile impact on actual goals scored. So a legitimate first line top power play impact from Stefan Nason. And I don't think it's, they're not going to keep it up, but I don't think it's a big surprise that in 5 power play opportunities with him up there, they scored twice. I do think the New Jersey power play is better with him. You get Hughes and Bratt on the top power plays. The Hughes, Bratt, Cotter line I like best. If you want to take out Cotter and put in Nason and just make it a full power play stack, I honestly think that's fine because I think the Nason Holla Tatar line is actually going to be pretty good for a third line anyway. So, Hughes line for sure. If you want to take out Cotter, put in Nason, I think that's perfectly fine. On the Ottawa side, yeah, for me, it's Ottawa 1 or bust. I don't have really that much interest in Drake Batherson and Josh Norris. I was looking at their numbers over the last few years. Like, they're giving up about 26% more high danger chances than they're getting, and they're creating below average high danger chances. Like, they just don't score well. I know Norris had 3 points the other game. I think two were on the power play. One was an overtime. Like, it was a 15-goal game. Somebody's got to get some points, right? I just don't have a lot of interest. For me, it's Ottawa 1. Like you said, long sample being good. Going back to last year, 3.1 goals per 60. Kachuk and Stützle are probably going to play 19 to 21 minutes. Stützle will play more, but they'll play a lot. Coming in with positive leverage on the top stacks tool, 7.8% against 5% ownership. But it is the New Jersey side that I like better, especially with Linus Ullmark not starting. It's Anton Forsberg. Forsberg has looked pretty bad going back to the start of last season. So it's the Hughes line for me. I think Ottawa 1 is certainly in play, but it's the New Jersey power play guys I like in this game.
Yeah, I mean, Forsberg starting is a big reason as well. Also, Travis Hamonic being on the top pair is probably the biggest reason. He fucking sucks. Also, Quick Party in the chat. He's the guy who does the line matching. You fools should go sign up for line matching if you're interested. Patreon.com/line matching, you fools. You want to give us a thumbs up? That's cool. Go check out his Patreon. Anyway. Vegas Golden Knights with a 2.9 total heading into Tampa Bay. The Lightning have a 3.2. Vegas, and Tampa Bay. Like we said it earlier this year. I wasn't expecting it to be this expensive, but Kucherov, Point, and Gensel's up to $25K. That's like we're churning into McDavid territory there. I mean, I get it, but like I don't really want to play 25K Tampa Bay in this matchup when like we'll get to it, but Edmonton is $200 more, and I feel like they're in a little bit better matchup. You have the Rangers top line at 20,400 in a pretty good matchup. You have, we'll talk about Detroit because Quick is starting. There really isn't a ton of other expensive lines. Like the Eichel line is over 20,000 as well, which just kind of feels silly too. But those are the 4 lines over 20K. Vegas 1, Edmonton 1, New York Rangers, Panarin line, and Tampa 1. So like, I get it. And they have the highest top 2 stack on the board. It's just like 25K is a steep price to pay on this slate. Vegas is a good team. Their penalty kill is the issue, though, and that would be the reason to play them. You know what I mean? They're fully correlated on the power play. Honestly, though, like push comes to shove in my single entry, I'm going to pay the extra 200 for Edmonton. It's just something that I would do. If you want to play Tampa 1, be my guest. I'm never going to tell you no to a Kucherov line. Like Kucherov is in that basket with Pasternak and McDavid and McKinnon, like pretty much matchup proof, especially with the open net. He likes to cherry pick. And that's kind of important when you have the lead. Cherry pickers hitting those empty net goals. Just a random thought. I'm pretty sure Ovechkin's going to break Gretzky's record with an empty net goal because he just can't score with goalies in the net. But anyway, Tampa 1. It's in play, don't get me wrong. In MME, if I was playing 150, I'd be over the field on that 7% for sure. It's just in my single entry, paying half my salary for Tampa, I'd rather just do it for Edmonton. The Hagel, Cirelli, Paul line is a bit interesting because, well, I mean, like Hurl, Dorofeyev, Olsen, but Olsen's out. They have been very low event, but that Hagel, Cirelli, Paul line has been very good, so I don't mind them as a filler at 13.6. So it is Tampa 1 that I like the best. Just in my single entry, I think I'm going to go elsewhere. I'd rather play Edmonton if I'm spending up into the 25Ks. I just don't know if I'm going to be spending up. On the Vegas side, Eichel, Stone, Barbashev is where I would be going. But priced right in that range is the Rangers Panarin line, and I prefer them to Vegas 1 here. So, like, while I like these top lines, and I would definitely play them in MME. Talking from my single entry lineup that I'm going to be playing tonight, I'm going to be looking elsewhere. I think a hurdle one-off is fine, but it's really the top lines.
Yeah, I'm not going to go super long here. It feels bad saying because you could see both of these teams scoring fairly well over the course of the season. I don't have a ton of interest in either side. In single entry, like you said, MME, it's a different story completely. You're going to have some of both top lines. I think you're probably going to have some of that Tampa second line as well. As you said, Hagel, Cirelli, Paul, going back to last year, 14 high danger shots for 8.5 against per 60. They've been fairly dominant. I actually think they're going to end up going out against the top line. I think they're going to be used kind of like a shutdown line this year, which like it doesn't bother me going into Vegas 1. I don't think that's going to be a great defensive line anyway. So I think Vegas 2 is fine as filler. I'm with you. Like, I'm not paying $25K for that Tampa top line, especially where like we're not seeing huge ice time totals yet. You know what I mean? Like, I know like they won both games by 3. One involved a pair of empty netters though. Jake Gensel's only at 18.5 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, do I want to pay $25K for a line where only one of the guys is very likely to exceed 20 minutes? Like, Point could be like 19.5 and Gensel 18.5. You're relying on incredible inefficiency. So single entry, I think I'm passing on Tampa. I think I'm passing on Vegas as well. Eventually that Vegas top line, they're just going to crash. They're shooting 30% at 5-on-5. You know what I mean? 1/3 of that would be a pretty high shooting percentage. Like 30% is just obscene. Like, that's just a small sample in early season hockey. That happens sometimes. They had a great first week. Anybody that's used them, like, congrats. I used them once. I think it was the one game where they didn't really do anything. That's how that goes. I just think that they're going to crash eventually. I think Tampa had a pretty good penalty kill last year. I assume they're going to have a good penalty kill again this year. Barbashev may not be on the power play. Maybe will be now that Olsen's out. I guess we'll find out. But I just don't have a lot of interest in either top line in this game.
Yeah, my internet might disconnect, but while I'm here, there we go. We're back. What was I going to say? Lost my train of thought trying to fix my internet. The ice time. One, that Edmonton guys are going to play their 20-plus minutes as well. And then on the Vegas shooting percentage, there was a sample from a couple seasons ago where the Arizona Coyotes top line just shot like 19-20% for like 6 weeks. So, like, it's possible, but 30% is just unreal, not sustainable. It will, even if it drops in half, they're still running insanely good. So, yeah, I agree. I'd rather play Rangers Trocheck line. Excuse me. Vancouver Canucks with a 3 total heading into Florida. The Panthers also have a 3 total. Vancouver's lines are unknown. There's some speculation from the beat writers that Pettersson could end up playing with Hoglander and Garland. DeBrusk would be down with Suter. We just don't know. We just don't know. I don't have a ton of interest as it is. I think, if anything, it would be Miller Besser. I don't think I'm going to play them in single entry. So, I mean, if you do get like Pettersson, Hoglander, like, they've played well together, but this is a tough matchup. I don't really think I'm going to be like, oh man, I'm waiting for Vancouver lines to set my single entry lineup. In MMA, obviously, you got to pay attention to every small little detail. And if you get a combination that you like, you're going to have to put them in a little bit in your, whatever your crunches, whatever optimizer you use. Just, Pettersson and DeBrusk have played awful together, so they're going to mix it up. We just don't know what it's going to be. On the Florida side, like, I get it. Verhaeghe, Bennett, Erod is fun and nice. Like, I'm just kind of mum on it. I'm just kind of waiting for Barkov and Tkachuk to be back. Like, I like that line, but, like, who's finishing? I don't know. Like, for me, I'm going back to Reinhart Lundell, like that 2-man in particular. That's what I like the best. So this game is really MME only for me.
Yeah, I will say I have a sneaking suspicion we might see DeBrusk play with Miller and Besser, just because DeBrusk and Pettersson just have not played well, and I don't think they're going to move him down to the third line just yet. I think they'll give him, a little run on the Miller line to see if they can make it work there. Try to keep him in the top 6. Like, if it's Miller, Besser, and DeBrusk, I think that line is 19K and perfectly correlated on the top power play unit. Like, they wouldn't have any ownership would be the big reason why I would play them. Like a Miller, Besser, DeBrusk line, I would probably be under 1%. And when you can get that little ownership against any team, I'm interested. It honestly worries me more that Kevin Lankinen is starting for Vancouver. I was really hoping it'd be Shelovs again. But it looks like it's going to be Lankinen. So, like, if DeBrusk is with Miller and Besser, I would have some interest in that line. It would be one of those lines where, like, when warm-ups start, if we see it's there, I would have to run my projections again and see, what mine say, what stochastics say, like, because they would be perfectly correlated. Like Florida, don't get me wrong, Florida's looked good this season. They've also given up 11 goals in the 3 games without Barkov and Tkachuk, right? Like they've been outscoring their problems is kind of what they've been doing. So that means they're giving up goals on the other side. And Eric Brandstrom was called up for Vancouver. They needed another puck mover in the lineup, and I think he's a guy that can move the puck on the left side of the defense for them when Hughes and Hronek are off the ice. So I think that's going to be a boost for them offensively as well. I don't have a ton of interest in Vancouver per se. If we do get confirmation it's Miller, Besser, and DeBrusk, they're a line that I would seriously consider playing just because I think DeBrusk is a very good player. People seem to struggle a little bit playing with Pettersson, which is why I think Hoglander is going to be back up there because they have been pretty good together in their time together. But a perfectly correlated line against a Florida team that's been fine, but like I said, has been outscoring their problems, not necessarily playing great defense or at least goaltending. I'm going to wait to see if it's Miller, Besser, DeBrusk at warm-up. On the Florida side, like, I'm getting mad because I'm like, there's no way Sam Reinhart's going to repeat 24% shooting. And then Sam Reinhart's like, no, I'm not. I'm going to shoot 33% instead. I'm like, stop it, man. I can't take this anymore. But if anything, it'd be Rodriguez, Bennett, and Verhaeghe. Like, I want that perfectly correlated power play unit. It does worry me a little bit that Rodriguez was moved off that line last game, but low ownership, good top 2 stack percentage. All 3 guys on the power play. It would be Verhaeghe, Ben, and Rodriguez. But again, with Kevin Lankinen likely starting for the Canucks, I have less interest in Florida than I did this morning. And I would probably have more interest in DeBrusk, Besser, Miller if that's a line of warm-up than anything else.
Yeah. We'll have to wait and see until warm-ups. We have a doozy of a late hammer goaltending matchup. Which we'll get to. Philip Grubauer against Ivan Fedotov late night. Can't wait for that. But for now, let's talk about the Dallas Stars with a 3 total heading into Washington. The Capitals have a 2.6 total. Sagan is still out, I believe. It's going to be a little while for him. I would imagine Dallas runs back the same lines. I don't know if they skate. Don't remember, but Robertson, Johnson, Hintz, Duchesne, Marchment, Dodonov, Ben, Stankov, and Bork. Washington going Ovechkin, Strome, Protas, Wilson, Dubois, McMichael, Mangiapane, Vrana, Hendricks, LaPierre. Nick Dowd going to go out against Hintz, Johnston, Robertson. Doesn't necessarily completely take me off them, but I don't really like going against Nick Dowd. He's kind of an underrated defensive center. I didn't really want to pay 18-3 for them on the road either. For me, on the Dallas side, it would be then Stankov and Bork. If that is the line, you want to go back to Duchesne, Marchment. I think that is fine as well. I don't particularly love anything on the Dallas side in terms of single entry, obviously in MME. I would still get to the Dallas top line. I would still have some of the Ben, Stankov, and Bork line, But if anything, in single entry would be Ben, Stankov, and Bork. On the Washington side, Tom Wilson's looked good, and I hate that I'm admitting it. But his biggest impacts are not at 5-on-5; it's on the power play, and Dallas has a very good penalty kill. So I think if anything, honestly, if I'm power play stacking really expensive stuff, it'd be the 2-man of Mangiapane Vrana. Ice time's not ideal, but they're so cheap that you can fit them in as a two-man. It's just not a great matchup for Washington. So this is another one of those where it's like, if I was MMing, I'd have, a lot of these lines in my single entry. I don't know if I'm going to have anything.
I hear you on Nick Dowd. The thing is like Hintz, Johnson, and Robertson might be the best 5-on-5 line in the league. I mean, McDavid, Draisaitl, and Hyman would probably give them a run.
They struggled against the Sharks, man.
Yeah, they look bad. Like the whole team looked bad against the Sharks. Going back to last year, 19.2 high danger shots per 64, 19.24 and 4.5 against per 60. They just throttled the competition. Perfectly correlated on the power play. Like ice time is the issue. Just like I said, I didn't really want to play Gensel at 18.5 minutes when his line is 25K. It's the same thing with Dallas. But at least Johnson will probably be like 19 to 20. Robertson will probably be 18 to 19. Hintz will probably be like 17 to 18. Like it's not that bad. And like I said, I think this could be the best 5-on-5 line in the NHL. And they're at 18.3K, 5.6 top 2%, or top 2 stack, 2.0 ownership. Like nobody's playing them. And they are an elite line. And yes, I'm worried about ice time. But again, no one's playing them. And this is an elite line. Like that Dallas top line is certainly in play for me here tonight. They are one of the lines that I'm considering playing. The depth is fine. I don't like Dadonov playing with Marchment and Duchesne. Like Dadonov, he is just not the guy anymore. Like when this team is healthy, he's on the fourth line, if not a healthy scratch. Ben, Stankov, and Bork. What the concern there is Ben's top power play, Stankoven's second power play. Bork's not on any power play, and Bork only played like 11 minutes in his NHL debut. So like, I think because they're so cheap, they're fine as a filler stack. It's the Dallas top line that I really, even at 17,000 or 18,500 or 300, sorry, I really do like that Dallas top line here tonight against Washington. On the cap side, it's probably the Ovechkin line for the reason that they don't go out against opposing top lines, and I'd want to keep Ovechkin and Strome away from any top line, from this top line matchup in particular. The only reason I really have any interest is that it's Casey DeSmith starting and it's not Jake Ottinger. Casey DeSmith, not good enough for Pittsburgh, not good enough for Vancouver. And look at the goaltending problems that both those teams are having right now. You know what I mean? Like, hate to appeal to authority there, but, Casey DeSmith is certainly a large step down from Jake Ottinger. So Strome, Ovechkin, Protas, I think is in play. Strome and Ovechkin, we always talk about Ovechkin has his best numbers with Strome. Strome and Ovechkin will play like 18, 19 minutes. But it is the Dallas side I like a lot better here. And it's the Dallas top line in particular. They are one of the top lines I'm considering here tonight.
Yeah, Jake Ottinger gets $66 million and the night off. What a guy.
Not bad.
Yeah, I'd take the night off too if I got $66 million. Buffalo, the Skinny Swords with a 3.3 total heading into Columbus. The Blue Jackets have a 3.1. Buffalo played last night. They blew it to Pittsburgh. They still scored 5 goals. That top line looked very good. Columbus, they mixed up their lines a little bit because they sent down, or what did they do? Kent Johnson's with Fantilli and Van Riemsdyk, which is a spicy meatball. Justin Danforth. Yeah, someone got hurt.
Right? That's what it was.
Yeah. So it's Monahan, Chinnikov, Marchenko, Fantilli, James Van Riemsdyk, Kent Johnson, and then Sillinger, Danforth, and Pythagorean theorem. I don't know how to say his last name. Double Y's just confused me. LeBanc, that's who it was. Yeah, he's an absolute. He's so soft. That's his issue. If he had any, as Torts would say, if he got some snarl, maybe he could stay in the lineup. But he is Charmin soft. Buffalo looked good last night. They're getting ownership here for good reason. Columbus sucks. They've actually played pretty well, actually, considering the team. But Goodbranson's out. Jack Johnson is in. It's so funny to say Goodbranson coming out and it's a downgrade. But like Jack Johnson coming in is literally about the worst case scenario. Seems like a very nice guy. Not a very good hockey player at this point in his career. I like going back to Thompson, Tuck, Peterka here at 17-2. They are negatively leveraged at 16.2% projected ownership. You know, if you want to eat 16% ownership on an 11-game slate, plenty of ways to get different. You can go do the thing. They're on my list in single entry for sure. They just look really, really good yesterday. Cousins, Quinn, Benson, negatively leveraged at 6.3%. They are 10-8. That would be the reason. Anytime a super cheap line is coming in negatively leveraged.
Yeah. The beat writers were thinking Jack Quinn might be a scratch because Yuri Kulik is playing tonight and Jack Quinn practiced this morning, even though it was a back-to-back.
So yeah, that would probably take me off that line. I still think Cousins. On the Columbus side, this is back-to-back on the road for Buffalo. Like on Tuesday, Columbus was coming in with asinine ownership. Today at 12-9, they're coming in at 9% projected. It's still not ideal for me, but that line actually looked decent. I obviously like, and it's a bad bias, but like obviously I'll have interest in Fantilli, Van Reems, like Kent Johnson. Like, I hope they get second line minutes. The ice time is a concern because Sillinger's been playing like 18, 19 minutes. For what reason? Oh. So hopefully Fantilli with Van Riemsdyk and Johnson gets a little bit of a bump there. It's a speculative hope. I will dabble as a filler because Fantilli, I like Fantilli. Obviously like Kent Johnson. Hopefully they get a minutes bump, but this is a Buffalo one game for me.
Yeah, I wrote about the Columbus top line for the picks article today. Again, free to read over at Stokastic.com. 3 games so far in Minnesota, in Colorado, at home to Florida. The Columbus top line has outshot the opponent 31-8. High danger chances 14-1 and goals 4-0 at 5-on-5.
That almost doesn't make sense.
Like it's truly wild. Like, say what you will about Colorado, their issues have largely been goaltending, and Florida had their injury issues, but they still have a fairly full roster besides Barkov and Kachuk. Regardless, like Columbus was supposed to be a bad enough team where even in those matchups they were supposed to get run over, and not only did they not get run over, they ran the other team over. How long that lasts, I guess we'll see. But Chinnikov and Marchenko were pretty good offensively last year as well. Problem is there is a lot of ownership on them, obviously. 3.2% top two stack, 9.0% ownership. But, 17.5 to 19.5 minutes a game probably for these guys. 2 out of the 3 on the top power play unit. Marchenko and Chinnikov both pretty good goal scorers at this point. Not really. The only thing that worries me on the Buffalo side is that it's Devin Levi starting and not UPL. I mean, given the way that UPL has looked to start this season. But I think Columbus won even at that 9% ownership is perfectly fine. I really want to play Fantilli, Johnson, and Van Riemsdyk for a couple reasons. I do. Like, because they are so cheap. You can fit in like a 20K line plus Roman Josi plus these guys is what I'm looking at. Johnson, like, the problem for his NHL career is he generally hasn't been able to drive the play, but he's a good playmaker and he's been a good finisher. It's been a limited sample for his career, but he's been good at those two things. James Van Riemsdyk had a pretty good season for Boston last year. It's just that he was playing 13 minutes on the third line, so he didn't have huge numbers. And, I'm a huge Adam Fantilli fan. Fantilli's looked a little rough to start the season. I'm wondering how much of it is having to drag Kevin LeBanc around the ice. Now that he has a winger that he can play with, I think things might be a little bit more interesting. I'm not in a nutshell, I'd rather still play Columbus 1. I do think there are reasons to drop down to Fantilli, Johnson, and Van Riemsdyk, at least in a 2-man if you're playing an expensive stack, expensive defenseman, whatever. On the Buffalo side, what worries me is I think you want to pick on Columbus's penalty kill. It wasn't very good last year. It's been very bad this year so far, just 3 games, but it's a continuation of what happened last year. It's just the power play's broken up, right? Tage Thompson, line 1, power play 1. Dylan Cousins, line 2, power play 1. Jason Zucker, line 3, power play 1. Like, that just sucks. And if Columbus is actually not that bad at 5-on-5, you're relying entirely on the power play. Like, I'm with you. I would go back to Thompson, Tuck, and Peterka. They have a good sample going back to last year. 5.2 goals per 60, shooting 12.7%. That 12.7% is a little bit high, but they're generating so many shots that they'd still be over 4 goals per 60 minutes of 5-on-5, which is an elite number, even if it was if their shooting percentage was like a normal 10% or something. So I'm with you. If I was to full stack, it would be just go back to Thompson, Tuck, and Peterka. I don't mind Dylan Cousins as a one-off here tonight. He's been shooting a lot. I think he's up to something like 17 shots with no goals or something like that. So he's got to get on the board eventually, you got to think. Kulik has looked good to start the season. I was surprised he was a scratch yesterday. Like, he's probably he might be playing better than Jack Quinn right now. So I don't mind Cousins as a one-off, but I think it's both top lines I like in this game. Fantilli and Johnson are playable. I think I'd be more inclined to play them if I was playing like a 20 max or 150 MME than I would be single entry, though.
Yeah, I'm going to have to contain myself with my single lineup tonight, but we'll see what happens. New York Rangers with a 3.4 total. Heading into Detroit, the Wings have a 3 total. Not Igor in net, Johnny Quick. Johnny Quick played out of his mind last year, considering his age and circumstance. I don't think he's going to be able to repeat that. I hope he proves me wrong, but he is a pretty steep drop-off from Igor. I think Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere, 20,400, 14% top 2 stack, 8.2% projected ownership. When I used to write articles towards the end of the season, you'd write up McDavid and you run out of things to say, right? I'm not really sure what more you need to say about Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere line. They're very good at 5-on-5. You get Trocheck and Panarin on the top power play unit. The Detroit penalty kill isn't good. They suck 5-on-5 defensively. So I do really like the Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere line. Mika Zibanejad woke up a little bit the other game. He did hit the empty net, but he did contribute on the power play. I think if you are looking to save 4,300 and still have some Rangers, I have a Zibanejad line for you, and I think that is fine. As a filler, if you are power play stacking, whatever, I think a Hedl, Kakko 2-man is fine, something like that. On Detroit side, I think Detroit 1 is very playable here. Without Igor in net, it does worry me from a defensive standpoint. Igor covers up the Rangers' defensive prowess or lack thereof a lot. I think, with Quick, if he's not on his game, this could be a pretty feisty game, pretty high scoring. So I do really like Larkin, Kane, and DeBrincat here as well. They're a little bit under 20K, 10.2% projected ownership, 4.5% projected ownership, 10.2 top stack. I'm sorry. I think a one-off Lucas Raymond is also viable here, but it is both the top line being Trocheck and Larkin.
Yeah, I started the day with Detroit 1, one of the lines that I was going to write about in the picks article, took them out, decided to put in Rangers 1 instead. What can you say about that Rangers line at this point? And a big thing that I noted in the article when I was writing about the Rangers is actually 2 things. One is Alexis Lafreniere. He's at 18.34 per game so far through the team's first 3 games of the season. That's almost a minute 20 more than last season when he had 28 goals. Skating 18 and a half minutes, that's literally Jake Gensel territory, just without the power play time. The other thing is Artemi Panarin. Panarin only has 7 shots in 3 games, but what I noted is that only 32% of his shot attempts have landed on goal, and that's something that just happens in a small sample. Like we saw that with Evan Bouchard last game. Like I wrote about Evan Bouchard because he was missing on 75% of his shots. Next game he goes out, hits the net, scores a goal. Actually should have had 2, but we'll complain about the refs on another day. Panarin is typically around 47% of his attempts on net. If he's at 47% so far this season, he's probably at like 11 shots in 3 games. Like that's been the difference in his shot total so far. That line has looked great. There is no defensive matchup on the Detroit side that you should worry about. Like no line, no defense paired, no nothing. Like there is a reason why the Rangers have a 3.5 total on the road against a Detroit team. Like Detroit's not even one of the worst teams in the East, and Detroit and the Rangers still have a 3.5 total on the road because of Detroit's defensive problems. So I really do like that Rangers top line. Honestly, all 3 Rangers lines are in play. I think it's a matter of where what your secondary stack is. Like if you want to go with 2 middle of the road stacks, go ahead, play Kreider, Zibanejad, and Smith. That line has looked fine to start the season. Like small sample, but 66 shot attempts for, 3.6 expected goals for, 4.2 actual goals for per 60 at 5-on-5. It's only 30 minutes, but Riley Smith is doing to that top line what we thought Riley Smith would do to that top line, and that's make him a lot better offensively than Capo Caco ever could. So I think Kreider, Zibanejad, Smith are certainly in play. If you want to play one of those 25K lines and you need a cheap third line, I think it's the Rangers third line that you would dip down to. Like Hedl, Kako, and Cooley have played very, very well to start this season. Ice time may be a little bit of an issue, but that's just going to happen when you're picking through third lines anyway. And they're sampled together, again, small sample, 22 high danger attempts for, 9 against per 60 so far this season. Like they've just been crushing the opposition, and the Detroit bottom 6 is god awful. I think all 3 lines are very playable for the Rangers. I would go to the top line because they have a larger sample, larger top 2 stack. I think there are filler stacks that you can play with them. But top to bottom, the Rangers are playable here tonight. On the Detroit side, I do like Detroit 1. Again, Larkin, Kane, DeBrincat, going back to last season, 5.5 or 5.3 goals per 60. Now that's shooting 5% or 15%. Even if it was 10%, they'd be at like 3.5, 3.6 goals per 60 minutes. Like that's really good. And Detroit, once again, has changed up their power play units. Mercifully, they put all their top stars on the top power play unit. So that Detroit line is perfectly correlated. In a nutshell, I would rather just pay the extra $600 and go play the Lafreniere, Trocheck, Panarin line. That's just the way it is. But I think Detroit 1 is very much in play here tonight. But it's the Rangers side I just like way more here in this game, and it's lines 1 through 3, just depending on what your build is with your other lines and defensemen.
Yeah, it's rare you get a Rangers yes across the board from Cliffy, so you take it when you can get it. New York Islanders with a 3.1 total. Heading into St. Louis, the Blues have a 2.8 total. Blues mixing up their lines. They're going Kyrou, Thomas, Saad, Buchnevich, Neighbors, Bolduc. It's like putting lipstick on a pig. It's still a pig. Islanders going Horvat, Barzal, Duclair, Nelson, Palmieri, Tisplakov. I didn't want to call him cat noises, but I don't have a ton of interest in the Blues here. The one thing I would say is the Islanders still struggle mightily on the penalty kill. So if you want to go like Thomas Kyrou, one-off Buchnevich, Neighbors, I would concentrate like a one-off or 2-man on the power play. That would be the route I would go. On the Blues side, don't have a ton of interest in them. Interest for me lies on the Islanders side. It is Joel Hofer in net. Whether that's a huge drop-off from Bennington, I'm not sure. I'm a Hofer guy. We'll have to see. This is his first start this season. I do really like the Islanders' top 6 here. They're pretty cheap. Horvat, Barzal, Duclair, 14-9, fully correlated. 3 point. Like the Blues don't take a ton of penalties. they're one of the lower teams in the league over the past few years, like towards the bottom. But when they do take penalties, they can't kill them. And Horvat, Barzal, Duclair is a good 5-on-5 line in a pretty good matchup. So I do like that top line. You need the extra 1,200 savings. I'm fine with Nelson and Palmieri, that line. Sorry, Maxime. I'm going to call you Maxime T until I figured it out. But for me, I would just prefer to play the Islanders top line and a couple one-offs here and there on the Blues side.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of interest in the St. Louis side. They don't have enough good players to make two lines, which is why they're constantly splitting up Kyrou, Buchnevich, and Thomas. But until they put Kyrou, Buchnevich, and Thomas back together, I just don't have a lot of interest in playing them. On the Islanders side, it is the Islanders top line, Horvat, Barzal, Duclair. Not getting as much ice time as I thought they would. Like Horvat's been at like 18 and a half minutes a game, Duclair 16 and a half, Barzal closer to 20. But yeah, they're under 15K, and that ice time is reflected in the price. 14.9 K, 3.8 top two stacks, 6.8% ownership. I think that's perfectly fine. 4 games for the Blues so far this season. Only 3 teams are giving up more high danger chances per 60 minutes. Those 3 teams are Montreal, Anaheim, and Chicago. So, like, when you're down in Chicago, Anaheim territory in a defensive stat, I don't care how small the sample is, it's fucking terrible. I really do like the Islanders top line here tonight. The Blues, yes, they don't take a lot of penalties. Islanders don't really draw a lot of power plays anyway. But this team sucks at 5-on-5 too. Like, you know what I mean? Like the Islanders honestly don't need a power play goal here tonight to pop 3. So Horvat, Barzal, Duclair, by far the line that I like best in this game. If you want to drop down to Islanders too, like they're getting decent amounts of ice time. They've looked good in a small sample. Certainly not worried about any second and third line matchups from the St. Louis side. I think they're very much in play. I just want the perfectly correlated line. That's just what I generally defer to in DFS.
Yeah, I mean, the Blues are a mess. What can you say? Maybe Broberg looks pretty good.
I mean, I guess Nick Leddy's not playing, and at this point of his career, that might actually help them defensively.
Oh yeah, we can get Haas to suit up on the third pair, be an upgrade over Nick Leddy. Edmonton Oilers with a 3.3 total heading into Smashville. The Preds have a 3.2 total, one of the 5.5s on the board here tonight. I've seen it everywhere on Twitter today. And yes, I will mention it. I am not a big fan of BVP and MLB. I'm not a big fan of player versus team in NHL. But holy crap, does Leon Draisaitl own the Nashville Predators? It just is what it is. Whether that changes your analysis on what to play, be my guess. But Edmonton won 25,200. McDavid, Draisaitl, Hyman, 19.9% top 2 stack, 3% projected ownership. That is, in a nutshell, whatever the expression you want to call it, is to play them. That line coming in at 3%, yeah, you'll see McDavid push double digits somewhere, but like that whole combination being 3% is just a scary proposition. And yes, I want to spend the extra 200 to play Edmonton 1 here over Tampa 1 because you know they're going to play their minutes. Nashville's penalty kill leaves a lot to be desired. There's no matchup that scares me coming back from Nashville. Like Forsberg, O'Reilly, Nyquist at the beginning of last season, they had a good defensive sample. After the All-Star break, they were sliding like trucks on ice. So, like, McDavid's waking up a little bit. It's just a question if you want to pay $25,200 for a team on the road when there are tons of playable lines here. I will absolutely consider Edmonton 1 in my single entry here tonight. I think salary agnostic, they're one of my favorite, if not my favorite plays. You throw the 25,200 into the equation, and that's where it gets a little bit cloudy because that is a lot of cheddar. I do really like them, though. I also like the Nashville top line. It isn't Stewie Skinner and net, and honestly, it might be an upgrade to play Calvin Pickard at this point. Stewie Skinner looks a little lost. He'll get there. But no one's playing Nashville here tonight. Forsberg, O'Reilly, Nyquist coming in at 3.9% projected ownership at 18,500. They have a 3.3. They're expecting goals in this game. They also split up Stamkos and Marchessault. They're on different lines. So I would just focus on that top line. Forsberg and O'Reilly have been playing insane minutes. Yeah, Nyquist isn't on the power play, but he's still getting 18 minutes or so a night. So for me, it's both top lines in this game by a mile. You want to one-off Stamkos, you want to one-off Marchessault, you want to one-off Arvidsson, you want to one-off Nugent-Hopkins, be my guest. But if I'm stacking, it is the top lines.
Yeah, I agree. Here's the thing. I think they've changed those second and third lines every single game so far this season. So like how confident are we that Evangelista, Novak, Stamkos is going to start and finish the game together, right? Like that's one of the problems.
3% chance. That's what I'm talking
about. Yes, exactly. So like Novak and Evangelista, they actually played pretty well together in a third line role last year. The problem was finishing. Stamkos is probably a guy that can help them finish. And so like if they can leave that line together for a few weeks, I think they can do some damage. I just don't have a lot of faith that they stay together. Edmonton goaltending being what it is, maybe they stay together because they fill the net. But I'm with you. It's Nashville one that I prefer. Like you said about the ice time, O'Reilly and Forsberg both over 20 minutes. Gustav Nyquist 18 and a half minutes, and that's even without top power play time. They're leaning heavily into the top six. I worry now that Marchessault's on the third line that they're going to start spreading out the ice time a little bit more now that they haven't stacked the top six. But, if any line's going to eat the lion's share of the ice time, it is going to be that top line. I think Nashville one is very much in play for me here tonight. The issue that I'm kind of running into is like there are lines in that price range that I think I'd rather gravitate towards. Like we talked about the Rangers. I think I'd rather play them. I talked about Dallas earlier. I like them. New Jersey top line, the Vancouver top line. If Jake DeBrusk is there, like there are other lines in that price range that I have rated fairly similarly. So, Nashville is very much in play. They're not my favorite top line of the night, even considering price. So do with that what you will. On the Edmonton side, I will say I'd rather play Edmonton than Tampa here tonight. And that's one of those things that feels like famous last words. Like, here's your Nikita Kucherov four-goal game or something like that. Like, enjoy, you dickhead. So I do kind of worry that I'm just picking the wrong side, but I think going up against like Nashville is a team that is trading chances so far this season. Like their coach said specifically, he broke up the lines because they were trading chances so much, which like I think makes sense given that the way the team is built. Like I think they're not built to win 2-1 games. They're built to win 4-3 and 5-4. Like that's just the way it is. But Nashville's big problems have been goaltending. Until the goaltending gets better, like UC Saros is a really good goalie, but maybe he just has a bad couple weeks to start the season. It's one of those things like until I see him string together some good games, this might be a get right game for the Oilers. I'm not sure that I'm going to roster them in my single entry. I'm not a guy that usually plays $25,000 lines on DraftKings in single entry. But they are the top line on the slate for me. Just by overall fantasy points. If you want to just jam in a bunch of value around them, I think you can do that as well. So Edmonton top line, by far my favorite line in this game, but Nashville one is certainly playable.
Yeah, every time I say I like a line more than Tampa won, all I envision is after Tampa won the Stanley Cup, Kucherov just sitting at the podium shirtless, shotgunning beers. Like that's just what happens. But I do also like Edmonton more than Tampa. Oh, boy. We have hit the absolute festival season. San Jose Sharks with a 2.6 total heading into Chicago. The Blackhawks have a 3.4 total. There are 2-game stretches, back-to-back games last year where their totals were combined 4. They have a 3.4 tonight. Good stuff. I will note for the Sharks, William Eklund is a game-time decision with an upper body injury. If he's out, I don't even know who would move up. Maybe Zetterlund.
It's Daniil Gushchin, it looks like.
Gushkin. Okay. Let's talk about the Hawks here. 3.4 total. Bedard, Teravainen, Foligno, 14,700, 7% top two stack, 14.7% ownership. I get it. They have a high total. Their ownership is double their top two stack. I just, honestly, in that price range, I'd rather just go play the Islanders because the Blues are terrible. Yes, the Sharks are atrocious, but like, give me half the ownership, less than half the ownership in a similar matchup. Yeah, the Blues like are better than the Sharks, but sweet. What was that saying? Like, you're going to give them a participation trophy for finishing 22nd? Like, sweet. They are fully correlated, Chicago won. If you want to play them, they're obviously a great play. It's just like these are two of the worst teams in the NHL, and their top lines have insane ownership and negative leverage. This is one of those spots in single entry where I'm just going to say to myself, if the Hawks and the Sharks beat me tonight, I will wake up tomorrow with a smile on my face after I have 600 milligrams of caffeine, but I will eventually have a smile on my face. I am going to be fading this game in single entry. In MME, obviously they're perfectly fine. You just have to kind of make a choice here. When you have a team with double the ownership as your top two stack, I like to take stands. Coming in at the field just feels kind of bad. You're either under or you're over. That's just what I would do. Obviously, you're you, and you can make your own big boy or big girl decisions. I don't really have too much interest in the depth of Chicago. One off Bertuzzi, one off Hall, be my guess, but it would be the top line. On the Shark side, it all depends on if Eklund plays or not. Like, I think a one-off Toffoli is fine. A one-off or a two-man with Granlund is fine. If Eklund does end up playing, I'm fine with them in MME. I don't want to play them in single entry. Eklund's out. That really downgrades that line. I don't have a ton of interest in the Sharks. So, like, the most interest for me would be Chicago 1. But in my single entry, I'm fading. I'd rather go play the Islanders.
I'll start with San Jose quickly. I will say, in a nutshell, I would have interest in a Gushin, Granlund to Foley line. One reason Gushin's min price, he's $1,700 cheaper than Eklund, so it'd be like a true punt line. And I think if Eklund's out, Gushin would also take a spot on the power play, so it could be a perfectly correlated top line. Lord knows they'll probably play a lot of minutes here tonight because that lineup is starting to look pretty thin without Celebrini and Eklund in it and Will Smith down on the third line. Here's the problem is they're going to run into Jason Dickinson and Joey Anderson, right? That shutdown line has looked great again. Like we talked about it the last time Chicago was on the show. Chicago third line was one of the best shutdown lines in the NHL last season. You wouldn't know it because the whole team sucks so bad, but they were legitimately great defensively. They've been legitimately great defensively so far to start this season. 40 minutes together, 23 shots against per 60, 1.5 goals against per 60. Like high danger shot attempts against under 3.0. I think the league average is like 9.5. They're just completely shutting down the opposition. And the thing is Chicago started the season with 4 road games one of them was like in Utah, in Winnipeg, in Edmonton. Like they haven't been playing complete putzes, you know what I mean? And they've still been great. And if that's the line that San Jose top line is going to run into, that's a problem as well. The Chicago penalty kills look good to start the season. Other than some rough games from the goaltender, the penalty kill looked pretty good last season too. I think the San Jose top line is going to come in low owned because a lot of people just won't play Gushin, and he's 2,500. If I was 20 maxing, I might honestly have maybe a share of that San Jose top line, but single entry, I don't think I'm going to get there. Like Chicago, I do think there is merit to playing Chicago 1, even at like 15% or whatever. Like the San Jose team is just like, they're just bad. Like, I honestly don't know what else to say. The penalty kill has been fine to start this season. They haven't given up a PK goal against yet. They're also, they're also just like middle of the league by shots against on the PK. So like they haven't been playing that well that they shouldn't be allowing any goals. And again, they're a bottom 3 team by high danger shots against a 5-on-5. Like this is a team that's going to give up a lot of chances to Bedard, Teravainen, and Foligno. They're perfectly correlated on the power play. I think they're very much in play here. It's one of those games, like if Chicago puts up like 5 or 6 goals, like I don't see how that top line doesn't figure in heavily. So that's kind of the issue. Like I wrote up Bedard in the picks article. He's looked great to start this season. He's figured in on half of Chicago's goals so far this year. This feels like one of those games where he can really pile on the points. Like even at high ownership, like this is one of the high ownership spots, that over leverage spots that I do like here tonight is Chicago 1 at home. I think San Jose 1's in play in MME single entry. I don't think I'll get there. And the problem is, like, I would play like a San Jose second line if the lineup was healthy, but it's not. And I'm not going to go play Alex Wenberg, Fabian Zetterlund. Like that's just not what I'm going to do. So I think it's the Chicago 1 game for me.
Yeah. I just like, here I am. I'm okay with a Bedard one-off. I just don't think I want a full stack. Like, honestly, I'm probably not going to have any Chicago, but if I do, it would be Bedard by a mile. Let's get to the last game of the night, and it's an absolute barn burner. Philadelphia Flyers with a 2.8 total. Heading into Seattle, the Kraken have a 3.2 total. Goalie matchup, Ivan Fedotov versus Philip Grubauer. God damn it. It's the only late game, too. Tippett, Mitchkov, Frost, 14,600, 4.3% projected ownership. It's another line I think I would prefer to play than Chicago.
Should note,
I like that line. Mitchkov has
at morning skate, they swap Farabee and Forster. So Forster, Couturier, Brink on the third line, and Farabee's playing with Luchenko and Konechny.
I mean, Torts is going to Torts, but he has consistently played Matvei Mitchkov 18 minutes a night, which is nice. That line has looked good. I do really like the Frost Mitchkov Tippett line. Honestly, it's both top lines, like McCann, Eberle, Shane Wright. Our pal Ray Rock in chat is a big Flyers fan. He has no faith in Ivan Fedotov. He says he's not an NHL goalie. I tend to agree. McCann, Eberle, Shane Wright would be the line I would go to there. No one's playing him, and they're the same price as the Flyers top line. So it is both top lines. I think I'd never say no to a connecting one-off. I think a Bjorkstrand one-off is fine, but it would be the top lines here.
Yeah. Using stochastic ownership projections and my personal fantasy point projections, that Seattle, McCann, Eberle, Shane Wright line is at the top of the board for me for value. That always worries me when a Seattle line ends up at the top of the board for me, because you and I talk about it all the time. They spread out the ice time. Stevenson will probably play around 19 minutes, Beniers 17 to 18. Everybody else, you cannot rely on anybody to play more than 16 minutes. Like, that's kind of the issue. Thankfully, as Ray Rock says, Fedotov is starting tonight, and you don't need 21 minutes to pile on 5 goals on that guy. So McCann and Eberle, really good sample going back to last year, 465 minutes together at 5-on-5, 3.5 goals per 60, shooting 10.4%. Like, it's a shade high for Seattle, but it's nothing extreme. Eberle and McCann both play on the same power play unit. There's no ownership, low top 2 stack percentage, obviously, because it's Seattle, but no ownership. I do like that Wright, McCann, Eberle line. I agree with you. I think Beniers at 3,500. He's shooting more this year. And then that's something I noted in my picks article today. His shot attempt rate is like 29% higher than last year, which is pretty important for a guy that gets 17, 18 minutes, because then it actually puts a DK shot bonus threat in his profile. Like, before that, it really wasn't, because he wasn't shooting enough, but now he is. I don't really like his line mates. I think he's fine as a one-off, but it is McCann, Eberle, Wright as a stack that I like best. the line that I like best in this game is Mitchkov and Frost and Tippett. Perfectly correlated on the power play. Seattle's really struggled on the PK to start this season. Down at 4-on-5, the third most shot attempts against per 60, sixth most shots against per 60, just outside the bottom 10 for goals against per 60. And I noted today on Twitter, the Flyers power play has 4 goals on the season already. They had 4 power play goals on the season after 16 games last year. They already have 4 this year. It definitely has been better with Mitchkov. So I think the line that I do like the best in this game is Philly 1, because they are perfectly correlated, because the power play looks good, because the Seattle penalty kills looked atrocious, because Grubauer is in net. But I do think Seattle 1 is in play, and the grade out is a pretty good value for me in that price range.
Yeah, and I think that's the only late game, right? Yeah, because San Jose, Chicago locks at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Philly, Seattle starts at 10 p.m. Eastern, like 4 a.m. on Friday morning for Cliffy, but he's a warrior and he'll fight through it. Let's talk a little bit about defensemen here. The top of the board is spicy, and I think, honestly, they're all in play. Yossi, Fox, Werenski, Quinn Hughes, Evan Bouchard. I think they're all in play for all various reasons. I think Bouchard, Yossi, Werenski. I mean, I can't really rank them because they're all in play for me. I would put Quinn Hughes 5 just from a peripheral standpoint, but all the other 4 are definitely in play. Lots of value on the blue line here tonight. What you got, Cliffy?
Yeah, I have Yossi and Werenski at the top for defensemen. They're 2 of the 3 most expensive guys, but they're also playing a ton of minutes and shooting a lot. Like Roman Yossi's shot attempt rate is something like the 93rd percentile of the league, including forwards. It's absolutely absurd what he's doing early, especially, playing 27 minutes a game, puts a DK shot bonus legitimately a threat every single time he steps on the ice. Werenski, great matchup at home against Buffalo. Also had Dougie Hamilton in play. Like, I just have no faith in the Ottawa Senators. Like, their team, their goaltending, or the entire organization as a crew.
Just the city. Throw the city under the bus.
I like the city. The city's a good time. The city's treated me well, but don't have faith in the hockey team. So I think Hamilton's play. Cheap guys. I think both sides of that Montreal-Los Angeles game. We said it yesterday on the show that given the injuries, given the way that things were kind of moving, that Brandt Clarke might be in line for 20 minutes last night. He didn't quite get there, but he was at 1943, which is a season high. I think he might get over 20. He's still running the top power play. Brandt Clarke. Lane Hudson on the other side. He's getting more ice time as well. They brought up Jaden Struble. I don't think that's going to affect Hudson very much. I think it's going to affect more guys like Jack High and Justin Barron. So I do like Lane Hudson, 3,200. Eric Gustafsson, he's running the top power play now for Detroit. Whether it lasts more than one day, we'll see. But he is running the top power play for Detroit, and that's definitely worth something. Jamie Oleksiak projecting very well over at Stochastic in the matchup against Philly. I wrote up Owen Power. Just because the Columbus penalty kill bad last year, looking bad this year, Power's still a top power play unit, 3,500. I think that's worth looking at. Philip Broberg as well. After Falcon Parayko, he's probably going to get the 3rd most minutes now that Nick Leddy's hurt. So I think Philip Broberg, he's basically the only guy on the St. Louis side that I have any real interest in playing here tonight. I'll mention Alex Vlasic as well, just because Alec Martinez is not playing tonight for Chicago, and I think Vlasic is going to take up some of his minutes. So don't mind Alex Vlasic for Chicago. In that mid-price range, the 2 guys that stand out the most are Seth Jones and Jake Sanderson. I'll also mention Thomas Chabot left practice yesterday after colliding with a teammate. Now, the team said he was fine, but he didn't skate for optional skate this morning either. I assume Chabot plays, but I'm pretty sure he's not 100%. It could be one of those things like one big hit and his night's done or something like that. So Jake Sanderson, something goes wrong, he might be in line for even more minutes. Jake Wallman, He's been playing a lot for San Jose. Might have to block a lot of shots here tonight. And Brandon Montour in that mid-price range, I think, is very much playable as well.
Agreed. Let's talk about the aliens who control the goal. Lots of backups today. This is a mess. The one that obviously stands out is Sam Montembeault, for some reason, priced at $6,900 at home to a back-to-back on-the-road Kings that have struggled to score going back all the way to like the All-Star break last year. I like where am I? Vasilevsky, Devin Levi, Sorokin. Honestly, like for a spend up, I think Sorokin's about as far as I would go. Like I think Markstrom, if he starts, is fine. Up in the top range, like if you say, hey, you got to play someone in the AK range, it would be Bob, and that just doesn't feel great. But the other options are Rittich, the Chicago goalie, and Grubauer and Casey DeSmith. So like I am not going to be spending up, but my favorites are Sorokin and Montembeault, because why price Montembeault at $6,900?
Yeah, Montembeault on DraftKings at least, he grades out as easily the best point per dollar value at $6,900 at home against the Kings. So Montembeault, absolutely. Kevin Lankinen as well. Like I think like Lankinen is not a great goalie, but he is a fine goalie. And Florida still has no Barkov and Kachuk. It's basically as long as Vancouver doesn't give up shorthanded goals against, because that's how Florida's been scoring quite a bit of. They've been scoring quite a few of those. Lankinen should be fine. I'll mention Daniil Tarasov. He's starting for Columbus. I'm not entirely sure he's not just better than Merzlikins. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think
yeah. So I know it's a 6.5 total, but he's only 7,500. I don't mind Tarasov. So Montembeault, Lankinen, Tarasov are the three cheap-ish goalies I like in that order. The expensive goalies, I agree with you on Sorokin. He's the expensive goalie at the top of my board. Jacob Markstrom, I think, is in play as well, as long as he starts for New Jersey. And Andrei Vasilevsky at home against Vegas. Eventually, the Vegas top line is going to stop shooting 30%. Let's hope it's tonight.
Agreed. Who are you liking for your hat trick pick?
Going not completely random, but maybe a little bit off the beaten path. I'm going with Mr. Bowie Horvat.
Me like you that. Let's just get spicy. It's an 11-game slate. People love to just shit on my power or my hat trick picks. I haven't hit one in 3 centuries. Paul Cotter.
Ooh, welcome back, Cotter. Welcome back to the top 6, where I think he played a little bit at Vegas, but getting a real good chance here tonight.
Yeah. We will be back on Saturday. Tomorrow's very short slate. 2 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. We will be in the Discord. Again, if you want to sign up, click the link in the chat, which I am plopping in there right now. And good luck, everybody. We'll see you in Discord. We'll see you on Twitter. Hopefully we're talking about you Saturday for winning money. Good luck.
Good luck tonight, everyone.